Hi, welcome back to Bioenergetics. My name's Devraj, and actually I'm resurrecting an old series from the old days here with, I think, the 77th episode of Bioenergetics itself, which is like each episode is dedicated to a different type of exercise or a different area of the body or perhaps psychological issue. And I wanted to make one episode dedicated to the neck. I've been working with my own neck quite a lot recently, going to see a local physio here in Istanbul who's been doing all sorts of weird things with electricity and massage and manual manipulation techniques. And I've learned all sorts of new stuff, and there's also some old stuff that I knew about the neck and some great neck stretches that we can do. And for me, this happened because, I've been doing so much bioenergetics over the years. One of the things that takes place is you become more aware of where the blocks are. And I really became aware at some point doing a lot of the belly breathing exercise. I think the intense belly breathing workout, the 35-minute one, that I had still a lot of tension kind of at the base of my, let's have a look here, base of my cervical spine, where the thoracic part of the spine is kind of joining the cervical spine. In fact, if you look at a lot of people these days, one of the things you'll notice is that they have quite a pronounced lump about here, quite a lump kind of coming out. And I think there's even a technical name for that now, but it seems to be related to the fact that we're using computers and laptops so much, and so we're in this kind of orientation while we're working, and there's this control circuit which is made active from our mind, our thinking mind, up here in our frontal lobes, down through our neck and out through our arms. If you think of it just as a kind of physical pressure kind of a vessel, basically you've got like the body, which it's full of repressed emotion and energy, and it's pushing up. And then you've got the mind and this kind of control circuit. It's a bit like a screw-on bottle top, trying to keep the pressure in. And what inevitably happens is that there's a kind of, battle point, somewhere in the cervical spine. And it seems to be in this place where the cervical spine meets the thoracic spine. And you can see a lot of people, if you feel there, it depends how you have your neck moved at the time, but you may feel quite a lump just in that spot. So these exercises can really help you work with that. And, I think this is important because, in the old days, we didn't have computers and laptops and all that stuff. And so this was not really picked up so much, in the early days of bioenergetics or Reichian therapy back 100 years ago, 50 years ago. It was a different kind of world that we were living in. In like manner, not to digress too far, in the old days it was a lot about the rigid character, because the clients that the therapists would get back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were these professional, typically male, sometimes female, very caught up in the rigid mindset, always trying to achieve. Nowadays, with the prevalence of computers and the kind of societal changes that have gone on, people are much more abstracted from the body. They're more in the leaving pattern. What used to be called schizoid, not a very useful name for it, I don't think, but certainly leaving pattern is a good name. So, this is one of the reasons why things like bio and Reichian therapy, they always need a bit of updating to kind of keep pace with the social changes that are going on in our world, and especially the impacts of technology. So working with this part of your neck, if you're starting to develop quite a lump here, can be great, because, it means that you can do your work on your laptop, and yet it's not kind of, destroying your body or causing all these blocks to happen. Because you want your energy to be able to flow up the body, flow naturally up or down, or whatever kind of, belief about it you have. Obviously having a block at some point is not a good thing, and it's great if we can remove it. Before I get to the exercises themselves, it's good to mention, I think, that because the neck is obviously a very sensitive area, you don't want to mess around with your neck, you don't want to mess around with your spine, it's super important. All the nerves from the brain are kind of going down there, I think, inside the spine, to different parts of your body. I'm totally not an expert on this stuff, but everyone knows the spine and the neck. It's a super important and sensitive part of our body, so we don't want to do anything too extreme to it. And of course, if you have, quite significant neck issues, whatever they are, before trying these exercises, maybe show this video to someone who's medically qualified, just to make sure that they're okay for you. The types of stretch that we'll be doing, they're not so much dynamic movements because of the sensitivity that we need to have with this area. They're more the kind of stretches where you basically lean into something and then you keep breathing and feeling and just allowing gravity to kind of deepen the stretch or to increase the stretch a little bit physically. It's just, you'll get the idea as we go along, but it's just to mention those are the types of stretches that we're doing, and they're a classic type of bioenergetic stretch. And with these stretches, you may be super keen to jump in, but take it a bit easy to go to the first time you try them, Use it as a kind of preparatory exercise where you just feel into it and see if it feels okay for you. You don't want to pull a muscle in your neck. Okay, very exciting. Let's get to the stretches themselves. Number one. You'll need a rod. Ideally, it could be like a broomstick. I've got a bit of metal rod, ideally about an inch and a half in diameter. That's something like, 30, 40 millimeters, something like that. And you're going to take your rod, hold it quite tightly, about with your hands about maybe 60 centimeters apart, a couple of feet, and take it and kind of pull it into like the middle of your cervical spine. So you're pulling it in about here, basically. And then what you're going to do, I'll show you from the side, is you're pulling it in here. It doesn't have to be a super big pull, just enough to give a little bit of tension. But you're going to lean back, your head back over it, whilst breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. That's your first one. I recommend you do it for something like 2 minutes. 2 minutes a day will be really, really great. Breathing and feeling your way. Put my rod down. Exercise number 2, classic neck stretch. And by the way, some of these you'll find in the Reich Home Book by Jack Willis, which you can download if you look online. You'll find a link somewhere. And it's absolutely free as a PDF. Also, my book, Reichian Breathwork, I think has some of these exercises in it too. But anyway, let's get on with the second one, which is like looking behind you, essentially. So trying to keep, your chest aligned straight forwards. You twist your head in one direction. And then you breathe and try to increase that stretch gently, like So the only twist is happening really around the neck. It's not, I'm not twisting my body. Shoulders are still forwards. And of course you do the other side as well. Breathing and feeling. That's another set. Again, you can do those, you could put on a 1.5 or 2 minute ding and go through these exercises, stretching to one side for 20, 30 seconds and then the other. The next pair of exercises is dropping your ears towards your shoulders. Trying to keep your shoulders down so you're not pulling your shoulder up to meet them. You're trying to just stretch. So you're sideways on. Stretching down like that. Slowly getting into it and breathing and feeling, same as the others, and the other side. Okay, now the next one is a kind of neck pull. So we're going to pull our neck down, breathe and feel. And again, go easy with this if it's the first time. To start with one hand really pulling and the other backing it up. It's kind of hooked over the crown of the head. Everyone's head is shaped a bit different, but pulling down, so you're pulling your chin towards your chest and breathing and feeling. Now, if you've done this one a few times and you feel confident with it, what you can do towards the end, do 20 seconds, 30 seconds of breathing and feeling, and then you can do a couple of kind of sharp neck pulls down. So it's like seeing if you can get, a bit of stretch to go here. Now, I need to stress with this exercise, be careful, don't do that, don't be stupid with it, obviously. Most people, our nervous system or whatever, our brain's defences are conditioned to go easy when we're working with very sensitive parts of the body like our neck, but nevertheless, don't do anything crazy. Do this exercise a few times just pulling, and then experiment a little bit with a little tug. Maybe you'll even get a satisfying little click from some bit of your upper thoracic or cervical spine. Okay, and finally, a really big stretch to do. It's also in the Reich Home Book. Is you lie on a bed. I'll demonstrate in a moment, and you allow your shoulders are right at the end of the bed, and you need a bed where it's just a fairly firm mattress, and you don't have a footboard or whatever, so you can just lean over the end of the mattress, and you just lean back and try to let your head stretch down. I haven't got a bed in this room, but let me just put a table there so you can see what it looks like, even though I think it's easy to describe. So this is a kind of a temporary setup, bit of a mock-up, but like basically your legs should be relatively straight and your arms relaxed by your side, and then you just allow your head to fall back and start breathing and feeling. So it's like and just gently allowing your head to fall more back as much as it will. There's often a lot of tension, you know. I've got quite a bit of a bull neck here in the kind of back, you know, and it takes a while to unwind that stuff. But this is a great exercise, and I recommend that you do it. You know, start off with something like 2 or 3 minutes, go to 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes is probably as much as you need to do. So just 10 minutes lying back, just trying to let your head go. Now what you can also do in this position is also start to, and it's generally with any static stretch, you can do this in bioenergetics, is to increase the depth of your breathing a little bit, because that will bring a charge up into the body, a charge of energy into the body, and it helps the release come along. You know, it's a slightly advanced technique when you're used to these kinds of stretches on a regular basis and you want to send them a little bit deeper. You increase the breathing, trying to engage your abdominals as well, so it looks a bit more like really allowing your you know, increasing the charge, stirs up energy and moves blocks. Something you can also do, like with the neck pulls earlier, is to, when you're familiar with this exercise and you've done it a few times at 10 minutes, is to kind of bounce your head a little bit like. You can do that for 30, 60 seconds during your 10 minutes, just to see if there's a little bit extra of spinal flexibility that you can invoke by bouncing it out. Okay, and whilst I'm down low, I've just remembered there's one more exercise I can show you. Now for this one, you're going to lie flat down on the floor with your arms by your sides and your face down and with your shoulders kind of touching the floor. So it looks like this, your head to one side. And then try to keep your shoulders pressed against the floor, gently pressed against the floor. You're going to move your head from side to side. So it's like. This is a handy exercise because a lot of us have some level of bodily twisting in the shoulders, and this can help to correct that. Like for me, my left side is much more blocked than my right side, my right shoulder, and so doing this exercise can help to correct that over time. Okay, so that's a whole heap of different neck stretches that you can make use of. Feel free to make them into some kind of workout on like a 90-second or 2-minute ding, and then putting a 10-minute ding on to close with a long, deep neck stretch going back. I'm currently doing most of these exercises daily, so I think that's an excellent plan if you have time and you really want to start to move this. Otherwise you could just integrate 1 or 2 of them into your daily routine, or perhaps do this deep neck stretch just before you go to bed at night. Great, thank you for joining me today with Bioenergetics. Do check out my website, bioenergetics.org.uk, for books and video courses and all that kind of stuff, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.